Tell me one more time what your tattoo says.
It says, the impulsiveness of a blind madness, which alone accedes to the passion of a pure imperative.
And who wrote it?
George Bataille.
Where did you find it?
In a book called The Sacred Conspiracy, which is an archive of disparate texts and a sort of historical retelling of a secret society that George Bataille and his friends created in the 30s and 40s.
And what made you decide to tattoo it?
Well, this book was really impactful to me when I first read it. And Bataille is certainly a madman. And I resonate a lot with his writings and with the energy that is in his writings, a sort of desperate, there's something like desperate and longing and beautiful about the urgency with which he writes and the confusion that he writes about and that he clearly felt. And I got it tattooed when I was in a state of mania, and kind of similar to my first tattoo, it's like I have these moments where I realize that they're not going to last forever, but I want to memorialize them in a way and be like, don't forget this. It's so important that you should put it on your body. And so that's what I did.
And what's the first tattoo?
Sacred Trickster.
Tell me the meaning of that.
Well, the Trickster is an archetype that I play with a lot. And it's something in a way that I aspire to. Not always in my trickster energy, but a trickster sort of lives in my mind at the outer realms of what we might call reality. What we think are the rules of reality in the world. And the trickster can float back and forth between reality and whatever's outside of reality.
What's a trickster?
A trickster is an alchemist. A trickster is something that has multiple forms. It's never static. A trickster is always playing with our expectations and challenging them, challenging what we know to be true, always finding a way to flip things back on themselves.
And what does sacred mean?
Sacred is in good faith, because a trickster can be ethically ambiguous. A trickster can be not always a force for good. The sacred is we trick, or we embody the trickster for a good reason. Not to hurt people, not to sort of create destruction, but to enliven and to create meaning and to be creative, not to destroy.
And what's going on with your thumb? Why is it all bloody?
Oh. I pick at my skin.
You pick at your skin?
Yeah. I've done it since I was a kid. It's definitely my anxiety. And like maybe a little bit of my masochism.
And a bit of your oral fixation.
I don't chew it.
Oh, you do it with your fingers?
Yeah, it's with my fingers.
Oh, never mind.
It's not with my mouth.
And tell me what are these?
My psoriasis.
And tell me about your psoriasis.
It's an autoimmune disorder. And it is my skin reproducing itself too quickly on overdrive. And it's really annoying. And is probably connected to my mental health in some way, but I don't really know how to create that map.
How to create that map?
It's not exactly one-to-one. I'm not really manic right now.
Can you show me the other psoriasis?
Here?
Yeah. Does it hurt?
It itches.
Oh.
And it's not very aesthetic. I don't know. Maybe it's connected to my mania and my depression. It sucks.
It's gonna go away. It went away and then it came back.
It feels like it's maybe a little better.
It does, for sure, for sure.
Looks a little better. I hope it goes away.
Are you a fan of the story of the eye?
Yes. I love Bataille. He's a weird man.
Very weird. I love too. More common ground.
I feel very lost.
In general? Say more.
I don't know. I don't know what I should be doing in life.
I don't either. Maybe not knowing's okay.
Yeah. I think right now I'm happy if I'm not totally depressed. But the middle is kind of weird. So I don't feel like I have a sense of my purpose.
Just to contextualize, you're just finishing your first feature screenplay, which I can't wait to read. You're doing amazing work as the systems architect of the Bombay Beach Biennale. You're also starring in Tao Ruspali's new production, The Dulcinee Dialectic.
I think it's
You're also focusing on your mental and physical health and well-being.
I know.
And it's all from the outside. It's all making huge progress.
Really?
All of those.
You
Yeah.
think I'm doing better?
I know you're doing better. You're doing 1,000 times better. You're doing 1,000,000 times better. You're a whole different human than you were a year ago.
In a good way?
In a really good way.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, everyone was really worried about you.
Yeah. I was having more fun though.
The fun is about to begin again.
You think?
Yeah, but in a more controlled way.
Yeah, I don't want to be manic.
No. I think it'll just be. I think you're entering a cycle though of positivity and of productivity, and hopefully not mania, but like some of the benefits of mania can come in. I think so. I see it. I see the big. You have little cycles that are throughout the day. You have monthly cycles, and then you have yearly cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize now that this is why you're so interested in astrology. Because I'm serious. These are all you're tracking. You're tracking not just. I mean, think about it. The daily cycle with your meditation and your that is tracking the spinning of the earth, right? Because that's that's what makes day and night. And then we have your monthly cycle, which is so exact, and that's tracking the moon cycle. And then you've got a yearly cycle which tracks the earth spinning around the sun. And you have definitely are in sync with that as well in some way. So I think you've got these multiple cycles going on that take you in waves, and some of them are fun, and some of them are challenging, and some of them are dark, and some of them are light, and some of them are creative, and some of them are destructive. And it's all part of a very, very complex system of bodies in motion. Am I right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. This just all came to me in a flash of insight this moment. I mean, I've always been in tune with your cycles, but I didn't think about them in terms of how they are directly related to celestial bodies. Moon, earth, and sun, and planets, and all the things.
I think it's all a matter of perspective. Like, life isn't so bad, but I think about things a lot. Questions. What should I be doing?
You should be doing a lot. I think you have I see you as in the in terms of your life cycle, your entire life, you're at the beginning, and I see that you're gonna be a very accomplished human by both your own standards and the world standards. I definitely have a belief in you in that, and I think it's good that you push yourself, because I think the world is waiting for you. It's waiting for what Dulcinee is going to offer it in all of its forms, as a poet, as a filmmaker, as a social human, creating experiences, as a lover and partner and experimenter in sexual and social complex relationships, and as a subject of my intense interest and curiosity. That's just a small little grain of sand. in all of this. So I think there's a lot going on. I think part of the pressure you put on yourself is just how having been around interesting people my whole life who do a lot of things, interesting things, part and parcel of that is a sense of never feeling quite settled. An unsettledness. Because that's what pushes it's like that clip I showed you of the guy saying anxiety is creativity.
Yeah.
Like, I sometimes feel like my creativity is what's the word I'm looking for? It's like blunted a little bit by a sense of complacency and comfort. And I think that I like that you don't have that.
I think I'm waiting for a big aha moment.
Oh, I don't think there's many of those. I think like, you're gonna be waiting a long time, because a lot of the like questions you have, I think, don't ever get resolved, and that's okay. They just they unfold one token at a time. Next word prediction. That's one thing that people said, like, maybe we discovered with the large language models that yes, they only are predicting the next word, but that's also what we're doing. In a way, we're constantly predicting and just trying to do the very next thing.
Yeah.
And then retroactively, we kind of try and make sense of it.
It's been a weird time.
Yes, it has.
I think things will change.
Oh, of course. They're never not changing.
Yeah.
They're never not changing, especially with you. The only consistency is change. The only constant.
Yeah. I really want an aha moment. I want to realize things. I want to be inspired.
Are you not feeling inspired? What's most inspiring you these days?
I don't know. I'm looking for it. I feel like my poetry's a little... It's not right now.
They're not coming out right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I also believe in our collaboration of your poetry, and I can't wait for you to start singing. Dulcinee's a great singer, although she doesn't like let anybody hear it. But it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. I know it. And also a great beat maker and appreciator of like hardcore techno.
I like the beats.
Yeah.
I like the beats and the drum machine.
Anything else you want to talk about?
How are you feeling being in a relationship with a mentally ill woman?
You're not mentally ill. I refuse to pathologize it. No, illness is the wrong container. It's the wrong semantic container, and it's the wrong category. I think it's just completely wrong. I think I think it's a lot more right to say that the world is mentally ill, and society is mentally ill than
I
your
agree.
society that you're mentally ill. You're just a very like specific and very peculiar and very wonderful spirit and mind. I don't see you as mentally ill at all. I think, it could be useful 1% of the time to pathologize in the sense that you want to address something, but I don't think you want to address it qua illness. I think you want to address it qua like just how to optimize your mental state with the world and the world you want to make, because you're also not accepting the world as is, like your political interests and your interest in Bombay Beach is more than an observer stance. It's an interactive stance of wanting to change the world in some way. So I think the container of mental illness is a limiting one and a dumb one, that's imposed by what, like a doctor said it in 7 minutes of talking to you based on like answering yes to what, like how many questions? How
Not
many?
many.
What's that?
Not that many.
Yeah. So it's just not very useful, I don't think. And then I think explanations should be based on their usefulness. Like the concept of explanation is something I've been thinking about a lot. There's a, you can explain things like, there's a physical explanation to things, in terms of like fundamental laws of physics, and then there's like chemistry and biology. And even if we could reduce chemistry and biology to physics, it wouldn't be practical or useful to try and talk about like the behavior of these plants based on like the quantum gravity and those laws. You need to like come up with higher level laws, and then you have psychology and philosophy give you certain types of explanations that are useful, at a higher, more emergent level. And so I think that insofar as like the bipolar diagnosis is an explanation for your behavior, it's a very limiting one. And I think you just should like use it in the very limited context of that explanatory realm, insofar as it's helpful, and that's it.
I have stopped thinking about it so much.
Good.
And I'm not like reading it online about it anymore, which is nice. I just feel like I'm at the beginning of something. Like my memories of before feel very distant. And I feel kind of like, who am I? What do I do?
Isn't there a another cycle that I left out, which is like the Saturn return?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
What's
true.
that? How many years is that?
It's like 2.5 to like 3.5.
Isn't there also like a 28-year cycle, you said?
That's what, yeah. Oh, yeah, you mean how many times? Yeah. The Saturn return is 27 to 29 years.
And you're about to turn 30, so you're starting a new cycle.
Yeah. In March of this year, I started a new. Yeah. When Saturn went into Pisces, that was the end of my Saturn return. And I'm basically in the fallout and also the beginning. And I had Saturn in my first house, the house of ego, the house of self, which is a difficult placement to have. So it's like of no surprise really that my entire sense of self, my understanding of who I am was completely obliterated. Like, just gone.
And now you're building a new one.
Yeah. Slowly. It's intense. I don't know anything it feels like. I don't know anything. I'm a little scared.
That's okay. You're safe.
Yeah, I feel
You're protected. You're
safe.
loved.
I know. Am I safe from my own mind?
That's probably the biggest challenge. But I think you're gonna be, yes. I think you got it under control. Insofar as that's a thing. I mean, we don't control, it's like a garden, right? We don't control it completely. You have to like nurture, water, pair, trim, and allow to grow.
I feel more in control than I was. I think I'm trying to focus on acceptance.
Acceptance of yourself.
Yeah. And of how things are exactly in this moment. And not dwelling on the past and not worrying about the future.
I mean, a little bit of, obviously, like, I think the past informs who you are, and you're pressing into the future, into possibilities. But yeah, you need to like do that from a place of grounded centeredness in the moment. I don't believe in the kind of be here now completely. I do think that we are a product of everything that came before, and our choices are informed by all the possibilities that we see in front of us. And then we have this constant, choosing of one thing and other things dying away, and this complex dynamic between past, present, and future is a lot more interesting and complicated than be here now.
I agree.
No offense to Ram Dass.
We can never fully be here now. I mean, we can, but it's not sustainable.
It's good to come back to it. I think that's what meditation is good for too.
Yeah, it's good, and it's not 24/7. It can't be. It can't be. I'm grateful for you.
For me? Why? Not to toot my, not to.
No.
That sounds like fishing for compliments. No, you don't have to tell me why.
I'm happy to tell you why. Because you've been my companion during this really intense time. And you've just been there. With love and support. And I'm just really grateful for that.
I'm grateful for it too.
And for encouraging creativity and growth. And, I feel like we've been on a journey of getting to know ourselves, our neuroses, our patterns in a deeper way, myself in like a really intense way, and you in these other kind of minor ways. But it's been nice to have a companion, to not feel so alone.
Yeah, I'm on the same page.
You're my person.
Yep. Well, I think this is a good podcast if we want it to be.
Oh my god. I thought we were going to talk about AI.
This is a great podcast. We could also talk about AI, but this seems much more interesting. Wait, just yeah, let's just because we have been talking about it. What one thing that came up yesterday is, speaking of mental illness, I think my addiction to my phone is more of a mental illness than anything you have. Yours is just a beautiful, complex mind that interacts with the world in ways that are very creative and rich and full of productivity and creativity. And I just like fuck off on my phone at the most inappropriate moments, going on Twitter and obsessing over Israel and Palestine. And what's your take on my journey of addiction in that way?
I think you're on the journey. I think it's like all sort of healing or betterment journeys. It's cyclical, it's circular, it's certainly not linear. And I see you go in these loop-de-loops of being focused on it and then sort of being not so focused on it and kind of returning to an old pattern. But you're so much more open and aware and willing to see your own patterns than you used to be. And I think that's a huge step forward. Yeah, I really appreciated our conversation yesterday. Like it just felt, it was nice for me to say what I was experiencing, and to say it aloud made me realize that I was just making it about myself.
Making what about yourself? Wait, give a little recap.
I was feeling a little self-conscious and insecure because Tao is going on his phone a lot.
And you took it as a sign of you not being interesting enough.
Yeah, I was kind of in my head about it, being like, I'm not so interesting, I guess. Like, in my head being like, I wish I had more interesting things to say that would inspire him to look up and like engage with me. Just feeling kind of weird and lonely, even though I was like with you. And so I sort of voiced that, I think, in a roundabout way, but I arrived at the voicing of it. And I, it wasn't like accusatory in any way. I was just like, oh, feeling kind of like this, and you were really receptive and saw the situation and the behavior, and I just really appreciated that, because I know it's like kind of hard to talk about, I guess, but it was nice that we could talk about it and it didn't like turn into a fight or anything. How do you feel about it?
Oh no, I know I got a new phone, so I got back into the I just
You're
allowed
blaming it on the
myself.
phone.
What's that? No, I'm saying like the getting of the new phone, which like it got me excited about. I had my phone in black and white for the week that we like went, and my phone was not working, the speaker wasn't working, so it was a little easier to not be hooked on it. Then I got the shiny new iPhone 15 Pro Max with this amazing camera, and I do see it as a great tool for that. But then I just let myself, I like to make rules for myself, and then sometimes I just like to just ignore them. So, for example, I'll go for weeks without eating sugar or drinking alcohol, and then one day I'll just say, fuck it, I'm going to eat pancakes and have a gin and tonic. And this has been my week of like being like, fuck it with the phone. But I want to go back to being a little more rule governed by it, around it. And I have been, the whole Israel-Palestine conflict going on right now has been turned into a bit of an obsession for both me and the rest of the world. I think it's horribly, it's just a horrible thing that's happening that is very close to home for a lot of people in my world. I grew up in a very Jewish Zionist culture in Beverly Hills. Like I had most of my friends growing up have been identified with this world, and American, obviously political, are very politically insinuated and complicit in everything that's happening there. I think it's very different from other conflicts in the world in the sense that it's very divisive even for people here, and the implications that it has even amongst people who aren't directly suffering it, the way it's like kind of reinforced the tribes and causes like these fights on Twitter, and part of me thinks it's it's like slowing down and looking at a car accident, like you shouldn't, but on the other hand, like I can't help it. Like I'm very interested in all of the kind of both coarse and nuanced interpretations of what's happening. And so I've been very wrapped up in reading the news and in reading Twitter reactions and commentary, and so that's definitely been absorbing a lot of my attention. And then I disconnect from that and been playing a lot of music, and that's been my world when I'm not paying attention to you. Which I am paying attention to you more than you realize, but
I feel it. I feel your attention.
And then the AI world also is an obsession of mine. And I want to integrate that into this film that we're working on. So the news around developments in the AI space have been very
Are you going to
constant.
Use the ChatGPT voice now that it's out?
Now that it has a voice, it's so fluid, the situation. That's also kind of why I'm like it's a moving target, and I also feel that's in a very beginning stages. And I feel like it's going to be a fantastic creative tool for me. I'm very excited about it as a tool. For me, it's inspiring and motivating in like the same way that a new camera can be, or any new technology that is, I think, creative, a new synthesizer. For me, like these generative AI models are very exciting creative tools. As a filmmaker and as a thinker of the philosophical implications around technology and what it means to be human, is something I like to I think deeply about. It's what Being in the World, the film, was about, and it's what this film is going to be partly about. Like, how are our experiences mediated by technology? Now, I was talking to, I'm talking to you through the phone, even though you're here in the room, documenting though this conversation, and then turning it into a film. I just yesterday they released the Chat GPT that you can talk to with what sounds like literally Scarlett Johansson's voice. If it's not, it's a very close simulation of it. So we're living in this kind of moment of Her, the film that came out 10 years ago, and it was very prescient because here we are, like very much very close to that. I had weird dreams last night, and I asked her to interpret them, and she gave me like Freudian and Jungian and Lacanian interpretations of my weird dreams, and I find it very fascinating and interesting kind of blend of human knowledge, or what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of consolidation of human knowledge in a way that's way more interesting than a Google search. And I think it's a sea change. So, but I also can see how all these things can become distracting addictions instead of creative. How do you direct it in the right way? I like to think filming you and making a film with you is one way, and doing podcasts, and using them for, using these tools for like not their novelty, but to actually say something and explore something deeply. That's the temptation. Is like, I think they always tend to go towards the surface. The nature of the technological devices is to like encourage and nurture superficiality. And so how do you use those very same tools to go deeper? Is it possible? I don't know. I'd like to think so. Any closing words?
I'm curious. I'm curious at what point, if ever, I find myself inspired to engage in a more meaningful way with the AI. It hasn't like caught me yet.
It doesn't have to. I mean, you can still be a poet with your pen and
Totally.
paper.
No, totally.
If it inspires you, great. If it doesn't, like every artist has their medium. I've always been inspired by the medium of the latest technology. Like that's what the LAFCO bus was about. Was like DV. People, like filmmakers were like, digital video's ugly, and it's never going to be film, and that's true. And then we watched the movie on 60. I also have been really appreciating like this re-engagement with the love of cinema. Like we watched 2 movies yesterday. We watch movies all the time. I went through like a few years of just never watching movies anymore.
I know.
So
that's when I met you.
Yep.
I was like, what's this?
Yeah, no, it was terrible. And I blame the phone for that too.
Yeah. Yeah, your relationship to new is a thing
Huh.
that spans all areas of your life.
Yep. Yeah, you and even in relationships,
Mm-hmm.
or not relationships, or connections, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Because my relationships tend to be long and deep.
It's true. But even like the, like, why being on the phone is an activity that captures you, is this constant desire for new stimulation, like whether it's YouTube or Twitter or Instagram. Like, it's just this new, I want new information, even if it's not really that new, but it has the feeling of being new. Which is interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's really, I don't know what the balance is, because people say such big things about, I was thinking about this yesterday when you and Jamie were talking about it, and it's like the whole of human knowledge, like these wild sweeping statements about how epic this technology is. And I don't feel that innately. And I find it, just from like an observational standpoint, really interesting when I hear people talking about it and I just don't feel it, and haven't like seen it. And
Your sense is that there's a lot of human knowledge that isn't captured by this.
I definitely think there's a lot of human knowledge that I have a slightly different, I think, understanding of what machinic intelligence can and will be. But I'm always questioning that, like in the way that maybe you question your own. But I'm always questioning it. It's not a static understanding, but I am. I don't herald it as this like this second coming, which is kind of the energy of like some people,
of the techno optimists.
It's like I was listening to this podcast about self-driving cars, and it was like recorded. There were two podcasts. One was recorded like 5 years ago. The other one was like 10 years ago. So it wasn't actually contemporary, like not to right now. But like in the one that was like 10 years ago, the guy was like, self-driving car is just going to change like the entire world. It's going to change all these industries. And he was like, think about like bus drivers, like truck drivers who are going to get unemployed, or the pizza delivery men who aren't going to have jobs, but like soon we're going to have like gym cars. You're going to just book a car and you're going to be able to like be in the gym while you're on the car, and you're going to have a car that's going to make the pizza for you in the car. So there's going to be no restaurants. Like, and it was kind of this amazing time capsule of a techno optimist 10 years ago, spiraling out as to like all of the different ways that this technology was going to change the world kind of immediately. And 10 years later we can listen to that and be like, that's cute. And we're still kind of, self-driving cars are going to change the world, but we're still kind of like, so I guess I'm like, what's the balance between this sort of like, oh my God, the world's changing right now. Like even the experience last night of listening to it and the sort of deflation when you realized that there was a delay. And like how it wasn't this like seamless, you were like, everybody's talking about this. It's really cool. It's gonna be so cool. Like that was the energy. I'm not saying you were saying that, but then the actual experience of using it and being like, cool. Like, you know,
I feel like it's still primitive, but it is a sea change. My thing that we can look back on in 10 years is I think this will be seen as life-changing as for me, it's reminiscent of when in the late 90s, the internet started creeping in. And it was like, oh, cool, chat rooms and, Lycos searches. And it was, kind of creeping in a way that's like, this feels significant. Like it's changing the way we orient our stance towards the world. This way, we've talked about this before, but like the way Marshall McLuhan said, it's not what's on the television, but what's the way the TV orients the living room, and everybody suddenly is sitting differently. That's more important than the content that's on the TV. So now I feel like we had that, and then we had the cell phone, the smartphone. We had cell phones where, so we're walking around talking on the phone. That was a little weird. But then when the iPhone came out, whoa, new technology. Now the iPhone, if you look at the iPhone 1 and the iPhone 15, it's kind of the same thing. Like now there's video and there's the front camera and there's the bigger and this sharper resolution, but it's still like these apps on this screen that we're holding this rectangle in our hand. So then I was always wondering, what's the next thing that's going to be like changing the way we live in the world? And I think this AI, which maybe is even the wrong name for it, people are already resisting calling it, on the one hand, we have Aaron who says intelligence is an outdated term. And then even if it did exist, computers don't have it. They're just like hacks. It's a magic trick. Or on the other side, you have our friend, the venture capitalist, who says we shouldn't call it AI because it's not artificial. It's real intelligence. It's like, so we have people spanning the spectrum about their either optimism or cynicism about it. But whatever it is, I think it's the next technological shift that's going to reorient our like basic behavior and our way we interact with the world and with each other and with the technology itself. I think we're going to the rectangle iPhone smartphone era is coming to a close, and it's going to be replaced with the AI being inside things that listen to us. Whether it's our car, it'll probably be something that we carry around, or wear as glasses or have like in our lapel. And we're just going to talk to this thing. And rather than like look up something on Google and have a list of a bunch of links and have to click on them, we're just going to have this thing that synthesizes it in a conversational way. And sometimes, the talking is clunky. Typing still makes more sense for a lot of things, but maybe not. I don't know. I also am fascinated by the idea of returning to an oral phase of history. Writing and reading, we forget. We think of it as this like really primordial behavior, but for hundreds of thousands of years, human beings just talked to each other. There was no writing, and there was a primacy of images and speech. And then we went into writing and text, and now we go back to images and speech, and maybe we return in some way.
I think for me, the question remains, is more always better? And there's like a flattening. This is true of all technology, but there's a flattening. Like even when you asked it to interpret your dreams, it's like, here's Freud, here's Jung, here's Lacan. None of the answers were particularly interesting, or insightful.
I agree, but that's because it didn't have a lot to work with. If I had given it a little bit more of my background and as the conversation evolves with it, if I have one long conversation and it knows more of my previous dreams, and it can say, okay, I can say like, recall my previous dreams and what I told you about my childhood. And now it was just taking a random person saying it had this dream, you know, that he had this dreams. I think that, again, it's primitive still. That's the irony.
I know.
But
I
yes, there's a
guess
flattening.
there's a flattening. And I just wonder about, I wonder a few things. I wonder about what our relationship is to primary sources. How is that going to change?
You mean reading the actual Freud and Jung and Lacan?
Yeah, just use examples. But even what you said about like, I want my AI to read all of the Palestinian newspapers, or whatever you said, all of the articles about this thing, and then just summarize for me. This like constant flattening of information to like package it for you in a way that is functional, but removes the need to engage with any primary sources, or just do anything other. Like, there's some critical thinking that might get lost in this. Like, we already talk about the loss of critical thinking, but like needing to wrestle with material and to not have something summarized and to summarize it for yourself. Create an opinion. Like, at one point the AI will probably start to craft your opinions without you realizing it. And you're going to think that because it's your data that you are in control of that process, and there's a chance you won't be. And then you won't realize that your critical thinking skills are atrophying because you're only inputting summaries, and you're only like this notion that with all of the text that's ever been written, that whatever comes out of that is something smarter or more valuable, or that there's something about that's something that I don't know about that yet. That actually could be too much information to actually, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be good at some things, but I just mean as this companion, this companion that you talk to all the time and that you give tasks to, and it repeats it back to you on the human level, not at the level of industry or medicine or whatever. Because there are certain things that the ability to process huge swaths of information and see patterns, that's really useful in a way that humans can't. But then when you're talking on the everyday, the lived experience of a human being, how we should be using our minds and our brains, I think it's more complicated than that. And like, we can look at the internet, like you in your lifetime, you can look at these moments of technological change, which is kind of unique, right? Humans now you're seeing multiple massive revolutions in technology during your lifespan. And what are you going to learn from having seen both of those things? How it affected you, how it affected the world? Because it's not all good, right? It's not all good. And you talk about your own, how the phone has changed your interaction with the world. Could you now get ahead of it and be like, okay, AI, I'm excited about technology. I love what's at the forefront. I love understanding, the here and now, like what's the next thing. Also, what should I look out for? Because in 20 years,
it's almost like asking the drug dealer to help getting clean, though.
Well, in 20 years, you might, after the new is gone, it's going to be as old as your iPhone. You're going to be like, Chat GPT 100, it's kind of the same as Chat GPT 3, like the same, in the way that you just said that about the iPhone. But when the iPhone first came out, you were like, ugh,
Yeah.
it's the coolest thing ever. Changing the world. I can see people. I think that's like what I'm always trying to do. While also, frankly, being a little bit jealous of your wonder. I'm like jealous. I'm like, it would be probably nice to not have all these thoughts about it. But I can't help it. I'm just like, I don't know.
All right. Well, that's 1 hour conversation. That's amazing. So good. More soon.